Michelangelo. In Italian, is pronounced Michelangelo. In English, perhaps Michelangelo. I will allow myself to pronounce his name in Italian, Michelangelo, architect. This is a portrait of Michelangelo done by Daniele da Volterra. He also painted himself, and will arrive at that strange self-portrait. Yes, Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni was born on the 6th of March, 1475, and died today, meaning the 18th of February in 1564. I will talk again about him on March 6th. Known simply as Michelangelo, was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet of the High Renaissance, born in the Republic of Florence, who exerted an unparalleled influence on the development of Western art. His artistic versatility was of such a high order that he is often considered a contender for the title of the archetypal Renaissance man, along with his rival, the fellow Florentine, Leonardo da Vinci. Several scholars have described Michelangelo as the greatest artist of his age, and even as the greatest artist of all time. A number of Michelangelo's works of painting, sculpture, and architecture rank among the most famous in existence. His output in these fields was prodigious, given the sheer volume of surviving correspondence, sketches, and reminiscences. He is the best documented artist of the 16th century. He sculpted two of his best known works, the Pieta and David, before the age of 30. Despite holding a low opinion of painting, he also created two of the most influential frescoes in the history of Western art. The scenes from Genesis on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome, and the Last Judgment on its altar wall. His design of the Laurentian Library, Biblioteca Laurentiana, pioneered Mannerist architecture. At the age of 74, he succeeded Antonio da Sangallo the Younger as the architect of St Peters Basilica. He transformed the plan so that the western end was finished to his design, as was the dome, with some modification after his death. Michelangelo was the first Western artist whose biography was published while he was alive. In fact, two biographies were published during his lifetime. One of them, by Giorgio Vasari, proposed that Michelangelo's work transcended that of any artist, living or dead, and was supreme in not one art alone, but in all three. This is not to talk also about poetry. In his lifetime, Michelangelo was often called Il Divino, the divine one. His contemporaries often admire his terribilità, his ability to instill a sense of awe. Attempts by subsequent artists to imitate Michelangelo's impassioned, highly personal style resulted in Mannerism, the next major movement in Western art after the High Renaissance. And I will begin with this work. Maybe I could have started chronologically, I'm not sure. I begin with this work now. St. Peters Basilica in Rome, which we all know. And you see it here. It was a building that was not built just by him, of course. And he started to work on it when the construction began already. Here on the right is the colonnade by Bernini. The facade was not by him, and actually there is a problem that the plan he submitted was not respected. Moderna created this facade, and there are modifications, almost inevitable at the scale of such a constructive enterprise. But all in all, it is the center of Christianity, and the significance of the building. It transcends actually the limits of its specific religion. It was a massive effort. Uh, I remember once I went on Christmas to Rome to make a film. You know, I'm not a professional man in this field, but I had a camera with me, so I wanted to make a film, some kind of I wanted to see how it is there. So I went to St. Peters Basilica, but I was disappointed because there was too much, uh, I don't know, too much. How to I can't find the word now. It was too much emphasis on exteriority, on pomp. It was for my taste. Then it was too pompous, and so I left. And then I went to the Pantheon, and there was a little bit better, but still I didn't truly feel that what I would have liked to feel on that specific night. Christmas Eve, and I left, and then near the railway station, on a banal street, it was raining, it was cold, and somehow there in the solitude of that you know street at the periphery, I felt closer somehow to what we call God than I felt at St. Peter and then at the Pantheon. Anyway, this is like a short digression perhaps, but what I want to say is that I think what we call God can be arrived at depending also on what we feel, and not on the vastness of a certain building necessarily, or the glorious effort of. I mean, I'm not trying to diminish the importance of this building, but it is in a way so crushing with its size and its reaches that I don't know. Anyway, moving forward, a conjectural view of the old St. Peters Basilica, because there was an older building there before the Renaissance people started to build, and actually there were several plans for the basilica, and I hope you are going to see it. There is a lot to say here. You see the cathedral, but Bramante submitted initially this plan, and it was not built like this. Bramante himself, a very significant architect. If we are to think just of the great little temple that he built in Rome. And then Raphael himself submitted a plan. This one you see very different from Bramante's. This one also didn't succeed. And then Michelangelo's plan, kind of similar to Bramante's. So this is by Michelangelo with very, very thick, massive walls. And this is by Bramante. Very different both, Bramante and Michelangelo from Raphael's. And in the end, it was built in this way. So you see Michelangelo is here. So Bramante on the left, Michelangelo in the center. And this was with the extension of Maderno. But you see, Maderno modified the scheme by Michelangelo. So initially it was the old St. Peter's Church from the 4th century, very different from what followed. So Bramante, Michelangelo, and Maderno lengthened the nave. And but this part, the western part of the cathedral, belongs to, in good measure, to Michelangelo. Here is the baldaquin by Bernini, and it is indeed a great building with many great names contributing to it. Bramante's dome. Bramante proposed this dome, and Michelangelo Sangallo also submitted a design for the cathedral, but you see, in a way, very different from what was built. So St. Peters Basilica from Castel Sant'Angelo, showing the dome rising behind Maderno's facade. So this facade was built by Maderno, who also lengthened the nave, but the dome belongs to Michelangelo and the western side of the cathedral. Here is the Vatican, and the engraving by this person was published in 1569, 50 years after the death of Michelangelo, and showing St. Peter's Basilica. The dome was brought to completion by Giacomo della Porta and Fontana, but it was initiated by and projected by Michelangelo. Michelangelo, as you know, he arrived at architecture kind of obliquely. He never considered himself an architect. He didn't even consider himself a painter. He considered himself a sculptor. But he achieved excellence, of course, in all fields, whatever he did, including poetry. His poetry is very moving. Michelangelo's plan extended with Maderno's nave and narthex, as we already saw. The Pope talks to the populace from here. There is a balcony and so on. Maderno's facade with the statues of St. Peter and St. Paul flanking the entrance stairs. So the Pope talks from here. And the Easter and the other days, perhaps, the piazza is filled with people, and the policemen, trying to keep the order properly achieved. The apse with St. Peter's Cathedral, supported by 4 doctors of the church. It's here. Anyway, he didn't do all these things. The altar with Bernini's baldacchino. I mean, these the legs of the baldachin are similar to towers that Med architects built in Canada. But Bernini worked without scripting and programming and parametric design. Bernini, looking the other way. The Pieta by Michelangelo is in the north aisle of this cathedral, a very important sculpture or statue. He sculpted several. The inauguration of Pope Francis in 2013. It's hard for me to believe that actually 8 years passed since he was chosen the Pope. Time does fly indeed. Porta Pia, Michelangelo's gateway to history. This is also, I don't know if he did the whole building, but he did the 2 entrances to this building not far away. I think across the street is the British Embassy, built by, what's his name? Dennis Lusden. Good building. I personally didn't like so much this building or these entrances by Michelangelo, but it depends. I mean, it's difficult to judge because there were all kinds of interventions. It's possible that the gateways are indeed his, but the context is rather hybrid. It's not far away from Stazione Termini, from the train station in Rome. The drawings, as I said, the drawings of Michelangelo are remarkable, very powerful and very sensitive, and 5 centuries passed since he made most of them or many of them, and still they impress. We'll have a section dedicated just with to drawings. He anticipated, as it was already mentioned in the text, the fact that he transcended, he went beyond Renaissance. He anticipated mannerism quite strongly, and we are going to see Biblioteca Laurentiana in Florence, very close to San Lorenzo by Brunelleschi. The Laurentian Library houses one of the world's most important collections of books. This is the plan. It's very known. This vestibule with this stair which fills the space, and it's almost like I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a metaphor for knowledge, which is housed in this long space. The proper space of the library, which comes towards the visitor or whoever wants to see this space and use it. It's as if knowledge comes almost like the lava of a volcano towards him. You know, it's this necessity, the pathos of knowledge, in a way, is illustrated by this stair. I would call it the stair of knowledge. Within the plan, so this is San Lorenzo by Brunelleschi, and the library by Michelangelo is here, where you see with a stair here. So you enter on the left side of the church by Brunelleschi. The facade of the church was not finalized, was not finished. So since Brunelleschi's time, it remained undone. Michelangelo himself made a proposal for the facade, but it was never built. So you see, still, sorry for the picture, is not, the resolution is not the greatest. This interior space is interior, but it also gives the feeling that it is an exterior, as if you are within an open space. I think initially it was proposed to be open, but now it's closed here. So it's an enclosed interior space, which looks a little bit like, I mean, look at the walls. They look like facades of, exterior facades of buildings. We saw this one. So this is the plan of the vestibule. And indeed, this stair, is one of the most stairs in the world, famous stairs in the world. And because it's not just the physicality of the stair, but also its symbolism, because it connects the terrestrial, so to speak, plane of existence with a celestial plane of existence, if by knowledge we mean something kind of close to the celestial level of existence. So there are the two planes of existence, the prosaic one and the poetic one. And in between them is this stair, which is connecting the two planes of existence. If I am to generalize, I would say it connects the earth with the sky. It is built accordingly. Now we see here better so the actual library is here, Biblioteca Laurentiana. But architecturally, perhaps the most impressive part of it is here, the vestibule, which is indeed dramatic. Here is the stair. And a stair is, besides its functional raison d'etre, has a symbolic function often. And I think stairs are very important. And I didn't say anything exceptional. Many people know this. The functionalist might say, wait a minute, he consumed all the space of this room with a stair. Well, yes, but this stair has a function which transcends functionalism. This is the actual room of the library with the tables for study and so on. It is impressive itself, actually, I never saw pictures with people inside it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not very often it is used as such. I don't know. So as I said, Michelangelo arrived at architecture kind of, let's say, obliquely. He didn't consider himself an architect, but I'm glad he built, and he didn't consider himself even a painter, and he painted sublimely. So what can we say? The quintessential artist. And I believe today also there are artists, good artists, who could build very, very interestingly, but they are not allowed to, because they so-called don't have the right to signature, you know, because we became so bureaucratized. I mean, if the 16th century thought and acted the way we do, Michelangelo would have never built, because he would not have had the so-called right to signature. well, well, I don't know if any of the great architects of that time and even at other periods didn't have this. Who gave them this right to signature? You know, they were great architects, great artists. I mean, is it not enough? But now we need a committee to decide if someone has the right to so-called sign a project or not. And who are those I mean, who is in those committees? You know, who are they to decide if Michelangelo has the right to sign a project or not? I think our time killed many chances to arrive at exaltation or exuberance or even high levels of excellence because of its obsession with accountability in the name of numbers, not in the names of what transcends numbers. Einstein was quite correct when he said in life, what counts cannot be counted, and what can be counted doesn't count. But our modern society is built on very different premises. Anyway, because yes, a great artist has great instincts and has the talent to visualize those instincts. And you know, are such instincts measured, so to speak, in the countless tests that the modern society humiliates the artist by, you know, so-called measuring his, you know, adequacy to build or not to build? It's incredible. Really, I mean, we diminish the potentiality of the humans by all kinds of bureaucratic procedures. Look what the amateur architect that Michelangelo was built, because that's what he was. He was an amateur. I mean, sorry to say it, that we have to say he was an amateur painter, he was an amateur poet, and he was an amateur architect. We are talking about probably the greatest artist from the Western perspective, at least. But we also forget that the word amateur comes from amare in Latin, which means to love. But even this word connected with love, at its very etymological root, became degraded in our time because the so-called amateur is not a so-called professional. And it's a paradox because the amateur works out of love, not in order to earn a so-called living, not because he's paid, but he works because of his love. I'm so happy that Wang Shu, the great Chinese architect who received the first Pritzker Prize for his country, calls his office amateur architecture or amateur architects. Very nice. I hear a noise. I don't know if it comes through a microphone or please be kind and turn it off. Thank you. Yes, there is a sound in the background. Please make sure that you have all the microphones off because it's not an easy task for me. I talk freely and I have to be, you know, not to say too many stupidity. So please be kind with me. Thank you. This is a view of the ceiling of this great vestibule. I read that it was supposed to be open, but now it's not open. But nevertheless, it's a remarkable exterior space within an interior, within the interior of a, I don't know, should I call it a room, building? You know, these are walls that are within an enclosed space, but you could say that, you know, they belong, it's an idealized version of a facade, or four facades, because it has four walls of, you know, an external nature, so to speak. That's why he works with symbolic levels, extremely complex, and you know, he betrays in a way the factuality of our expectations. Here are some, you know, CAD drawings or digital drawings. It amused me to include them in the presentation. I wonder what Michelangelo would have thought of these if he saw them. Now you see even the treatment of the floor and the ceiling. It's a dialogue, but also a tension between the two. And in the poetry of Michelangelo, there is this tension also present. I think he did have faith, but his faith was not the faith of a medieval man. He was already an emancipated modern man in a way. And I think there was a tension, some questions, there was even anxiety. He desired faith, but I'm not so sure his faith was as pristine or total or even naive as those who preceded him. I'm talking about the men of the Middle Ages had. The Sacristia Nuova of the Medici Chapel was left incomplete by Michelangelo. This is the new sacristy, and it's a very famous work. And I will say a few words about the statues, the sculptures. In this sacristy, the new sacristy in the Medici Chapel, he showed his belief, I would say, that life has two sides. And I often mention this. One called vita activa, and is symbolized by Giuliano de' Medici. And across the space, vita contemplativa, symbolized by Lorenzo de' Medici, the poet or the philosopher. Here he is. So we have the two brothers. Now, from what I read, the two brothers are actually not buried here, but some other members of the Medici family. But it doesn't really matter. In terms of ideality, the symbols that, the powerful symbols that Michelangelo worked with are valid, and they will remain valid. So on one hand, on one side, vita activa, the active life, symbolized by Giuliano, the warrior. And across the space, the thinker, you see him in his posture, the meditative man, the poet, representing vita contemplativa, the contemplative life. And any life has both sides, the active one and the contemplative one. And a life which doesn't have both sides is a deteriorated or insufficient or incomplete and thus deficient life. But I think in our time, we value so little the contemplative life that, you know, the poets and the philosophers and so on, they kind of live in the shadow, if not on the gutter. And we only appreciate the active life. To produce, or to wage wars. It's all about acting. Much less about thinking, about having nostalgias, about meditating, and I'm not even mentioning spiritual life. So here is Giuliano de' Medici, and across the space, still Giuliano de' Medici, now Lorenzo de' Medici, facing each other, the two sides, vita activa and vita contemplativa. And if we would only reflect on the meanings of what Michelangelo did in this new sacristy of the Medici Chapel, we would learn a lot, but we don't do it. We don't do it because we are so busy to cover the earth with cement and concrete and then quickly escape to some other planet, if possible. Look at I mean, even architecturally is a great work, although it is mainly known because of the statuaries he created. But even architecturally is simpler as architecture, but still complex. And I think it's a great work. Now, I don't know, it was not finalized by him, but I imagine he had a significant input in the whole project. So this is Giuliano de' Medici, the warrior, and the two figures at the bottom, you know, represent the day and the beginning of the day, while on the other side, sorry, I don't have pictures with Lorenzo. I have to better my presentation. Please forgive me. I will do it by the 6th of March when I will talk again about him on his birthday. Michelangelo's Palazzo Farnese is now the French embassy to Italy. So he did also this palace, the Palazzo. It is what it is, palazzo. I don't personally like palazzos very much, but they have a function in the urban, you know, administration of a city, in the urban administration of Rome. And now is the French embassy here. The French have, of course, subtle cultural taste, so you know they chose the building by Michelangelo. Not bad at all. I wonder how much is the rent, but the French can afford it. It is architecture. It is architecture, Renaissance architecture. It is Michelangelo. It is. This is not one of my preferred works by him, but I don't really. I don't want to say that this matters. I think other works by him are more, but still the facade, as you can see, is very well proportioned, ordered. It has a degree of sensitivity. It has character. I move a little bit quicker because, as I said, I would like to also talk about him as a draftsperson, as a painter, and as a sculptor. So we'll cover almost all his activity without talking about his poetry. Maybe I'll invite someone to talk about his poetry on the 6th of March. These drawings are not from his time, I think, but it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to show that even inside the building has a certain complexity. The staircase of the Palazzo Senatorio was one of Michelangelo's great remodels. This is the Il Campidoglio, with a statue of Mark Aurelius. Now, the original statue, I think, was removed and was replaced by a copy. In this space, I truly suggest to you to watch the great movie by Andrei Tarkovsky, Nostalgia, because an important part of the film takes place in this very space. And with a so-called madman, Domenico, talking from the back of the horse of Mark Aurelius, giving an impassionate talk to the whole world before he sets himself in fire. Is a very, very moving movie. And I don't think it's an accident that Andrei Tarkovsky chose this space, very important in Rome, for the end of his great film. So, you know, you could say that here Michelangelo was an urbanist. I hope I have the plan of this, and I should have a plan, and I don't see it yet. Yeah, I have to improve my presentation. Sorry about this. So he worked on the facades of the buildings. I think he added these two stairs here. it's unclear to me at this point if he built ab ovo, meaning from zero, these three buildings that flank the piazza. These sculptures are not by him, but he created the urban space. And yeah, no, I continue with the presentation about this particular space, Il Campidoglio. And I hope I have a view from the air so you can see the design, which is very, very nice. You can see a little bit here. It's Arata Isozaki copied it in a very explicit way in a building he did in Japan. Yeah, sorry for these pictures. I'm unhappy with. I did this presentation a while ago, and I should have added some other pictures, but I will by March 6th. What I like about Michelangelo, whatever Brancusi might have said, and I will mention what Brancusi said. Brancusi, for example, had some kind of a polemical assessment of Michelangelo as a sculptor when he said that his sculpture is almost beefsteak-like, you know, it's very flashy. But I think there is much more to Michelangelo. Yes, particularly in his depictions on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Yes, the bodies are very voluminous and so on, but he was a highly spiritual man and tortured by contradictions, by inner tensions, conflicts. His psychology was complex. It's not by mistake that he was called, you know, I mean, he was related to a so-called terribilità. And his buildings also show this, yes, they are ordered, but they are never placid. Yeah, here you can see a little, but I was hoping maybe I still have a picture. I didn't look at this presentation in a while. What I wanted to say, there are two gestures in his works. One is very emphatic and full of pathos, but somewhere you also feel that this tormented man also had I don't know if I can call it modesty, but probably I could. I mean, a man who, you know, is suspended for a number of years of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and paints. This is a man with a sense of guilt, even of inferiority as a human being, although he had a greatness that was acknowledged by everybody. So is this dual side that makes him, I think, you know, so intensely relevant even for us today. Yes, here you see the piazza del Campidoglio, and with a stair at the end of the movie Nostalgia by is very, very moving. Please, if you didn't yet see that movie, please try to see it. It's a beautiful movie. So a lady, an important character, who walks up towards this space, and here on top of the horse of Marco Aurelio, Domenico, the so-called madman, gives a very passionate talk, and then he sets himself in fire. Anyway, I don't want to say more. I already said too much, but please try to see that movie. It's truly a beautiful, beautiful movie. A great, great film director. Ingmar Bergman considers Tarkovsky as the greatest. Anyway, here is a view from the air, and yes, Michelangelo had his hand at designing at least this. I know these two facades here and the pavement of the Piazza del Campidoglio. I'm not sure about this, but anyway, his impact on the Roman visual culture was immense. Here is the plan. A good artist, a good architect, could also be a good urbanist, you know, because what else is a city but a sum of elements which at a small scale is a house and at a large scale is a city. That's why Palladio himself said a room is like a house like a street like the city, and vice versa. And the city is a large house, and the house is a small city. That's why a good architect is also a good urbanist. Okay, Piazza del Campidoglio in Rome by Michelangelo. And you know, I ask myself, what is the relevance of Michelangelo today? I mean, are we just talking about someone who died 457 years ago just for the sake of, having a clear conscience that, no, I consider him our contemporary. For me, Michelangelo is our contemporary. He didn't die. And it's not that because I idealize him. I mean, once you achieve beauty, that beauty is not limited in time. This is another building by him, Michelangelo's grand design, the Palace of the Holy. I don't know about this. These are not my words. I took them from a list with works by him on the web. It's another secular building, although it is about the Holy Office. But, you know, I think the two words, holy and office, should kind of be kept a little bit far away from each other. You know, could we say God's office? It doesn't sound right, but because the whole world belongs to God. No, you know, he doesn't have a so-called office. You know, would you use this word even in relation to Michelangelo's office? I mean, please. But these are this is how we use words these days. You know, everything has to conform to the business mentality. You know. Anyway, he did this facade, and now Santa Maria degli Angeli dei Martiri was Michelangelo's final great work. It is in a it's very close to Stazione Termini, to the train station, and I visited it. I went inside. It's hard to tell because as you can see, the facade is, I think these were the baths of Diocletian. So there are ruins here from the Roman times, and I don't know very well what he did inside. Maybe he modeled the interior, but the greatness of the adjacent buildings almost do not allow you to think that behind this, ruined wall hides an important work by Michelangelo, but it does. But I don't know. It was maybe he composed the space and other people finalized it. It's hard to tell. It is obviously a collective work, but a hybrid work. Rome has so many churches that one gets dizzy, you know, you get lost in greatness, so to speak. He also designed forts, and some of his most beautiful drawings are for forts, for military constructions. And we only have the drawings. But look at this drawing. To me, of course, I am subjective. I judge it with my eyes. But you can feel the verve, the vitality, the nervousness of the drawing. I mean, really, yesterday I showed works, I come back to it, by Ingels. I mean, I cannot compare those drawings with these. I'm very sorry. Here I see, I don't know, the art of drawing, which says something about the inner truth of the man who drew as a drawing, just as this sketch and is magnificent. Even this one. He said, pittura è una cosa mentale. The painting is a mental thing, and that's where something, the word concept derived from, that we love so much. But what I'm trying to say, if we look at the drawings, these are drawings, but these are drawings of a thinking man who doesn't neglect the raison d'etre of what he's drawing, but at the same time, he's able to infuse the drawing with a lot of graphic intensity, artistic intensity. I mean, the drawings are very modern, so to speak, no? I love these drawings. I mean, look at that. This is Michelangelo. I think in these sketches, we grasp, we have a chance to grasp his very essence. Because what do I see in these sketches? I see on one hand, of course, they are for forts, they are for defense, but there is the double movement. There is defense, but it's not a cowardly defense, if I can say so. It's also, it's a double movement. It's one is defending, but one is also attacking. So here is a proud man drawing walls for possible forts. And if you look at this drawing, you see the agitation of a man who probably loved peace, but he also wanted to defend peace, and defend peace through its very opposite, meaning war. Excellent drawings. Okay, and now if you want, I'll go to another presentation also about Michelangelo. I have three. I go now to sculptor because he was most accomplished in a way, or famous for being a sculptor. Then I go to him as a painter, and at the end, somehow is the reverse order to him as a graphic artist. I mean, a man who generated many drawings. So the sculptor, Michelangelo, and he considered himself primarily a sculptor. It is presumed that by him, the very, very early works by him, Michelangelo, sculptor in bronze. This is truly the beginning of him as a sculptor. And you see there is conflict, there is tension, there is a fight. And that aspect exists in both his biography and his arts, I think I said correctly, the plural. The great Moses, this is truly a great sculpture, and can be seen in Rome. There is a church, I forgot how it is called. I should have known. I visited it, but I arrived at it by accident because I don't read guides. And anyway, I did see it, and it's almost a perfect statue. You know, what can we say? This is done in stone, right? I mean, so this is Moses by Michelangelo Buonarroti, and it can be seen in Rome. How did he carve the stone like this, you know? I mean, look at this hand. It's alive. I mean, even the veins are shown, and how could this be? And it's stone. I mean, let's imagine that we carve stone in this way. Would it be possible? If I am to be honest, and probably I say something that some people would be critical of me of saying it, but somehow I have a feeling that this arm, I always felt that this arm, there is a problem with this arm. I don't know why. Sorry. I truly apologize for having this thought, but anyway. The giver of laws, no, the one who, I mean, look at his eyes. I mean, look at the expression of his face. Great artists really covered the whole history of humankind. Beethoven did the same thing with the Ode of Joy to Joy. No, it's it's not about a particular time and a particular place. It's about eternity. It's about human history mingled with a history, with cosmos, with everything. David, of course, you know David, the proud man. And I would say it's not an accident that David came into being when Copernicus, approximately at the same time with Copernicus discovering that it was not the earth, it was not the sun that moved around the earth, but the other way around. Something that the church rejected and opposed with vehemence. And I think I understand why, because it changed everything. It really did. We stopped around that time to live under the sky. And that's why we are where we are, because our relationship with the above became fundamentally changed. But David is a proclamation of the greatness of man, doesn't matter his stature, and he defended Goliath. And as such, you know, he is an encouragement to all of us who feel vulnerable, but through intelligence, through craft, through ingenuity, through intelligence and ingenuity, through imagination, we can conquer difficult adversaries. It is a big statue. It's not a small thing. And I hope I have here images of him with real people, so to speak, around. Here again, look at this magnificent hand. It is magnificent. I mean, just, I could, and I have artistic ambitions, but I couldn't carve just this hand like this. No way. Forget about the rest of the body. Great sculptor. There is no question about it. Now here you see, you know, a dialogue between a so-called real person and the statue. Obviously, the one on the right is not Goliath. It moves me also that people like us, no, our contemporaries, working to clean up the statue, to, I mean, after all, it's more than 450 years old, almost 500 years old. But this dialogue between someone whose name we do not know, doing her job there, you know, to clean up the statue and the work of art, shows the beautiful cooperation over time between all kinds of people with all kinds of jobs. And as such, I think these persons deserve our appreciation. Look at them. This picture truly moves me. Now, art, splendid, huge. And then the human beings whose names we do not know around it with a scaffolding, you know, taking care of it. It's a very, to me, it's a very moving picture, you know, the relationship between life and art. And in fact, this picture gives credentials or agrees with what the Latin said, ars longa, vita brevis. The vita brevis is symbolized here by these two people, and the ars longa by the great statue by Michelangelo. Here again. And they need each other. This person, together with me and together with us, need the statue by Michelangelo, but the statue by Michelangelo also needs us. Maybe it needs even me to talk about it, and needs this person to you know, affectionately clean it up and so on. We are all connected, really. This hand is out of this world. It's just incredible to do this in stone. David, l'idéal parfait de l'homme ou de l'homosexuel? Well, somebody, you know, with a certain eye for certain things asked this in French. Is David the perfect ideal of man or a homosexual? It's true that I once wanted to do an exhibition with the backs of the statues of Michelangelo. And it's true that this David is a little bit, I don't know, one who is maliciously, so to speak, oriented could see a certain something there, on the left side. But I don't know. I mean, is it really so important? Who cares? But our time does care about such issues. How did the artist handle one aspect of his life? How was he in the bedroom, so to speak? That's why we have such sculptures. I mean, such commentaries. It's true that he kind of invited these such commentaries, maybe unconsciously. Michelangelo, as sexy as it gets, I also found this, formulation, this expression, because of this, perfection of these curves in the back of David. Anyway, enough with this. Back now to a less real, so to speak, David, but part of the urban context. This is a copy in Florence, in Piazza della Signoria. Yeah, initially maybe that one was intentioned for this too, I don't know, but it's now inside the museum. Here it is, and you see before the pandemic, the people taking pictures of it. Look at his eye, scrutinizing Goliath and winning the battle. Maybe that's how we should have our eyes as well when we want to defeat a difficult adversary. Be intense, like a panther or a tiger, and win. Is the expression of will, really. Pieta, a very different kind of sculpture or statue. We saw the one in the Vatican, in St Pietro. I personally like from all his sculptures the most his slaves, the unfinished sculptures, and will rather them, the deposition. Another, apparently he depicted himself here. This is Michelangelo, helping Jesus. Is the deposition, he was a man, I mean, no doubt, he was a man of faith, and even when he struggled with faith. How many of us today take ourselves, I don't know very well how to ask this question, how many of us take our role as artists, architects, thinkers, as intensely and as involved with the larger questions of life as he did. I keep asking myself, how many of us ask those questions, 3 questions by Paul Gauguin? Who are we? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Of course, Elon Musk would say we are going to the moon or to Mars, but that's not actually the answer that I'm sure Gauguin himself would have given, and certainly not Michelangelo. Rondanini Pieta. This is a great work, unfinished. I love it. Yes, it's unfinished, but it doesn't matter. The spirit of the statue, of the sculpture, is still, in fact, in a way, is perhaps even more potent. It's all the suffering of the world here, really, and no one could claim that there is no suffering in the world, unless we are just some superficial, happy-go-lucky people, but we shouldn't be. Rondanini Pieta, the dying slave. Now, here we come at those sculptures, statues that I mentioned that I love. This is the finalized one, but you'll see some sculptures that he didn't finish, and those are truly remarkable. The rebellious slave. So there was a dying slave as a rebellious slave. he obviously struggled with the idea of conflict. You know, the rebellious slave. What is a rebellious slave? He's a slave who rebels against what oppresses him. And the oppression could happen at many levels. Even a so-called free person is still oppressed by many, things. I'm not referring to gravity, but we are not free actually. So the prisoners of Michelangelo and the slaves that can be seen at the Accademia Gallery in Florence, in my opinion, are totally modern artworks. Yes, he didn't finalize them, but it's very possible that I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he intended them like this, or fate made it possible that they remain like this. But look at this struggle. In a way, the sculptures, the statues, in the finalized sculptures or statues, the struggle is kind of transcended, but it existed prior to the finalization of the work. Here we see the process, the struggle of the slave or the prisoner of life to escape the tormenting oppressions that assault us all. I mean, look at these four statues or four sculptures. To me, they are modern sculptures. They are eternal, actually. I think 1,000 years from now or 3,000 years before now, they would have been understood by anyone who had the chance, but also, I almost said, the misfortune to be born. Because yes, we are born to die. It's known, we are born to die. Sooner or later, we will die. And in this intermezzo, in this intermediate stage that we call life, we struggle, just like the prisoners and the slaves of Michelangelo, and just as he struggled himself. You see, the emergence of man from the block of stone, it's only sketched at this point, but sufficiently sketched to understand that he's born from in a way, the lack of life of the stone, and then he returns in the end into that question mark that we call death. It's really about struggle. And this struggle consumes us all. It doesn't matter, tall, short, thin, fat, poor, rich, we all struggle. That's why I think we should not wage wars against each other, because we are all entrapped in a way in the struggle of life. We should all be very kind to each other, because it is not easy to be alive. Although life is beautiful, it's true, but it's not easy to be alive. And so it is. We have the unfinished sculptures, and then at the end of this space, this long space, this corridor-like space, the apotheosis in a way of the powerful man. Powerful because of his intelligence and his determination, not so much because of his stature, certainly in comparison with Goliath. So this is the gallery of the Academy in Florence, and that's where all these sculptures are. I'm sure he saw himself, he represented himself in all these so-called prisoners and slaves. Just as Piranesi in his carceri, in his own prisons, depicted, I think, his own soul. These are great works. How would we design buildings? How would we design a house or a block of flats or an apartment, thinking that perhaps all of us are kind of like the slaves and the prisoners of Michelangelo? Because I think in our essence, we all are. It doesn't matter, white collar, blue collar. So we see the 6 slaves in order of completion. Well, yes, the last 2 are kind of completed. Awakening, Atlas, young, birdied, rebellious, and dying. So even here, he works cyclically, you know, is the roundness of creation, is the birth, awakening, and at the end of this cycle is the dying. In a way, what I see here, I'm just thinking of it, of the four cycles of life, or the four ages that North American psychologist, a woman whose name, unfortunately, I don't recall now, she mentioned, she said that any human being has four ages. Uh, we are all born orphans. You could say that we are like Atlas, you know, having the weight of the world on us. Then around 18, we become heroes and martyrs. Then we go through the second period of being martyrs and heroes, and around 40 or so, we become wanderers because we lose our center, and we realize that it's not possible to change the world. And if you survive the third stage, you arrive in the fourth one, being a magician. Now, Michelangelo didn't really depict them in this order, but I just thought of it that he kind of has between the two limits, awakening and dying, he has himself four stages: Atlas, young, verdant, and rebellious. Although, in a way, you could say that all four of them represent a level of rebelliousness, because Atlas is rebelling again, is fighting with a weight that is crushing him. The young is young, so he's supposed to be animated by a desire to change the world. The beard means, I never knew how to pronounce, to my shame, this word very well. I have deficiencies in my handling of English, and I apologize. And I have no excuses for it. This also represents now, in a way, masculinity. And look at the arms. Look at this arm. Look at this arm. Look at this arm, and even at this one. This kind of strange, because it's called rebellious. I don't know if he himself called it so, but his arm is actually around his body in the back. All in all, we can contemplate these sculptures and have various interpretations. But again, we are dealing with an artist who infused in his works larger meanings. And they are not just about a particular slave or prisoner, a particular person. This transcends individuality. It's about all of us, men and women alike. Okay, and now, if you allow me, I'll go quickly to him as a painter, because he was also a painter, although from what I read, he didn't have great appreciation for painting, but he did some of the greatest ever, at least in the Western tradition. Michelangelo, painter. And here it is, you know, I mean, this is the Last Judgment near the altar you know, where the Vatican is. And then the ceiling also is, this is the birth of man. I hope I have an image here with a puzzling question, because when he gives birth to Adam, and that's what this scene represents, there is already a woman created, and is at God's left shoulder. I hope I have an image. Yes. Who is this woman? Because she is already created when Adam was given birth. Now, from the Bible, we know that first was created Adam, and then from his bone was created Eve. But who is this woman? Because she's obviously not an angel. The angels are around. Who is this woman? Already created. It's true. She is, you know, in heaven, so to speak, near God. But who is she? Could it be that she represents the thought of creating a woman? But nevertheless, Michelangelo seems to suggest a different order of the creation that the Bible mentions. He's almost sacrilegious here. He's going against the Bible. But that's what I see. This is a woman, and she is already created. And I hope I have a bigger picture. the way she looks towards the creation of man is not the look of someone who sees it as a beneficial act. And many philosophers think that actually the creation of man, I mean, God could have done a better job if we consider that the many calamities man give birth to. Anyway, he took liberties, as you know. Many of the mythological, or if I can call them so, representations on this vast work were depicted undressed, naked, and pudicity of the following pope hired someone to begin to dress a little bit some of these scandalous figures. All in all, I mean, just if one created just this head, you know, and would have earned his life, so to speak. But I mean, these are huge, and they were painted on the ceiling, and he did them, you know, and not being a painter and not valuing painting too much. And it's not just painting, it's also a narration. It's the biblical narration. It's the history of the world, you know, from the beginning, from before history, as narrated in the Bible, but represented by a man who had obviously cosmic longings and an unbelievable capacity for work and for imagining at a very large scale. Everything is here, you know, the banishment from paradise. Some people think that this snake, which culminates, so to speak, at its head with a woman, that this woman is Lilith, the primordial woman before Eva, the undomesticated woman, the woman who actually certainly would not have accepted second-rate role in life as Eva accepted. Eva, you know, she was condemned by theology and by the sacred book to be born from the bone of Adam. But this wild woman, Lilith, if indeed that's what it is here, she represents the wild nature before Eve and before Adam. We can speculate. There are interesting questions. And here they are. Great art is truly, I mean, I don't know if art is long and life is short, but what would life be without art? Can you imagine it? Life is difficult with art, but without art would be unbearable. And this is Christ. You will see Christ, who was, although in the Bible is depicted as saying that you should, when an injustice is done to you, you should turn the other cheek. But you can see here that he is not so, you know, kind to those who committed, you know, negative actions. And here he is, the true criminal, so to speak. Michelangelo himself depicted in this skin. I don't know the story and the details. I used to know a little more. I forgot the details. But apparently Michelangelo depicted himself as a cursed artist. You know, l'artiste maudit in French, you know, the cursed artist. Why was he cursed? This man had immense so-called success. No, he was called the divine. He was called the one who, you know, the one and only, the divine Michelangelo. But he didn't have that perception of himself. This is his self-portrait as a doomed man. That's what he depicted here, the doomed man. What can I say? He probably felt guilty, felt miserable. He felt being nothing. He felt as if he didn't deserve to live. I'm talking about Michelangelo Buonarroti. So again, these things do not belong to him. It was a certain pope who didn't accept, certain anatomical realities. So he hired someone, Le Quillotier, or I don't know how he was called, who brought in pudicity, because the truth of life and the truth of art, if they are genuine, can be indeed provoking or difficult, I guess. Anyway, it's the story of humankind really here. Now, yeah, some might think that there is too much flesh, but he wanted. In fact, Michelangelo didn't do anything else, but he wanted to transcend the limitations imposed on the particulars of a certain time. This is about humanity since its beginning and maybe until its end, if there will be an end. Is about the eternal human being and human life, human struggle. Yes, from a Christian perspective, but I think it transcends even Christianity. I'm sure anyone of any religion would respond to the drama, the human drama that he depicted here. Him who didn't appreciate so much painting, and yet here is his self-portrait. This is the great artist, the greatest of them all, the divine. That was his understanding of himself. And I believe he was honest. He thought of himself as being doomed. The devil and the lost man, the sinner, contemplating his misery. It is an amazing work. I mean, even the word amazing somehow seems inappropriate and shallow. That this blue was, I'm not sure the colors are quite as he conceived them, but there was extensive restoration work done here, and some people claim that not all decisions were the correct ones. It's true that blue is a little bit, seems to be a little bit out of place. But what can we do? Time does pass, and even the greatest artworks, even though they are religiously taken care of, they are affected by the passage of time. Yeah, I do think something seems to be a little bit wrong with that blue. The work, this is the work of a, sorry for the language, the work of a madman. I mean, just to begin such a work, you just imagine one person beginning such a work. I mean, that ceiling is immense. Colors were dripping on him, and he didn't care. He painted because he was trying to earn his life. And maybe we should attempt to, in our own ways. We are not, of course, all of us born to be Michelangelo, but I think we are all infinite in our limitations, if I am to express myself oxymoronically. If we are only animated by desire, so because life is not just about being, but it's also about becoming. And in the process of becoming, we can transcend ourselves. I mean, just look this, this is not a page in a book. It's the ceiling of a great, great room, a huge room. It's really, I don't know, it's the quintessence of human life ever. It's too bad I am not familiar with the biblical story. And I mean, someone who knows all the details could explain all these scenes. but it's not really about technicalities. It's about the emotional impact. I'm still puzzled by this woman. Maybe someone from you would find out about who is this woman, which she contradicts the biblical story. Maybe it could be interpreted as the thought of Eva that animated the head of God before she was actually created. I don't know, but when you look at her, this is the expression of her face is not of a submissive woman. It's something else here. I think Michelangelo didn't agree with the story that the woman was created as a, like a second-hand reality, from the bone of Adam. I mean, I wonder what Adam would have thought if he was born from the bone of Eva.
It might be Mary, the mother of Jesus.
I doubt it. I mean, no, I don't know. If I was a painter, I would not depict Mary, the mother of Jesus, like this. I mean, look at her. First of all, she's undressed, and the familiarity of God with her. And I don't know. I don't know, but maybe it's an interesting interpretation. I never thought of it. Um, But you see the expression of her face is she's worried. And actually she has all the reasons to be worried. Anyway, so he was not a painter. So we have to look at this work as the work as an amateur, right? This is the work of an amateur painter. He didn't even have the right to paint because he never studied painting. He didn't have a diploma from a painting school. I don't understand what was wrong with the church to invest in him so much confidence. To, did he have an interview? Did he produce his CV to show what universities he studied in for the art of painting? And yeah, this is what can we say? It's a very well-known so-called detail. God and man and God. Self-portrait as the skin of Saint Bartholomew, which you already saw in the Last Judgment. So I don't know. I should read more about. I should read something about Saint Bartholomew. What is the story of this saint? That he represented himself as the skin of this saint in the Last Judgment, and here he is on the right. And I wonder who holds him. Actually, that could be interesting too. But anyway, this is the divine Michelangelo as he saw himself. Okay, and now I go to the last part of my presentation on him, his drawings. And his drawings are as remarkable as his sculpture, as his painting, and as his architecture. And I'm sure also as his poems, drawings. Now, I am saying it again. We have stars today, but I don't know of too many people who can draw like him. No. And the drawing, I think Le Corbusier was right. The drawing tells the truth about someone more than his words. He said, Le Corbusier, that he prefers to draw instead of talking, using the words, although he was quite capable of using words. But he had high esteem for the drawing because the drawing tells the truth. And I believe it does. it's very hard to lie through a drawing. I mean, you can mimic something, it's true, but that would be obvious. It's actually easier to lie with words than with drawings. Many sketches. There is a torment in many of the figures he represented. He draws very differently from Leonardo, the other great Renaissance artist. Michelangelo lived longer than, than Leonardo, but yes, him and Leonardo probably represent, although Raphael is there too, and he died much younger, in his 30s. Then Leonardo died at 66, I think. And then Michelangelo over 80, I don't know, 88 or so. But look at so it's a figurative drawing, but it's also very sensitive and lyrical. What can we say? I do believe that an artist, a genuine artist who draws well, who paints well, who carves well, can also do architecture. And it's too bad we live in such a specialized age where we don't trust the genuineness of a talent that can exercise that genuineness in various fields. Vienna entrusted a painter like Unterwasser or a sculptor like Votruba to build, but not too many countries do this. In the United States, we have Vito Acconci, an artist who also built, but many countries commit the mistake of not allowing someone who didn't go to an architecture school to build. Of course, Christopher Wren would not have been the architect that he was if he lived in such a time and in such a place, because he himself was not an architect, yet he built, if not the whole of London, a lot of London, and including St. Paul Cathedral and many other churches and buildings. He never studied architecture. Look at this drawing. It's magnificent. It truly is. What can we say? It is a divine drawing. I mean, really, I don't want to be malicious towards Bjarke Ingels, but we cannot compare his drawings with his drawings. It's impossible. Because we compare the shallowness of some parts of our age with the intensity and the seriousness of this time when Michelangelo drew in this way. And he certainly was able to conceptualize architecturally as well. You saw those sketches of forts. Those were abstract representations. They were plans of possible buildings, the same intensity of expression. This man lived for art. It's clear. I mean, you know, his art was his life, and he gave everything he had for his art. In whatever way this art manifested itself, he's a lesson. He continues to be a lesson. And that's why I say, and yes, I send the message, I keep repeating myself to thousands of people, and here we are, I don't know, 5 people, 10 people, 15 people at the most, of thousands. If the relevance of Michelangelo doesn't move us, I don't know what could. I mean, aren't we all somehow in the quest for giving meaning to life, to our life? I think we are. And if we are not, then we are actually betraying our raison d'etre, I think. We have to learn from the best, and Michelangelo was and is and will be one of the best. I mean, who could draw like this today? Or like this, or like this, or like this, or like this? He was a deeply religious man, but he was also living at that frontier between, receiving from the back, so to speak, the faith of the Middle Ages and advancing towards a modernity increasingly divorced or distanced from God. A so-called free man, but a free man who became alienatingly so. Daniele Ricciari da Volterra. This is the portrait, Daniele da Volterra, that you already saw, the portrait of Michelangelo, 1550. He was alive, Michelangelo, then. No, you saw the one in colors. I hope you see that one too. But this is also a good drawing, and I believe it has veridicity. I believe Michelangelo did look like this. Back to the drawings of Michelangelo. There is mythology, there is Christian knowledge or theology, there is nature, there is representation, there is symbolism, there is everything. I mean, look at this face. It was probably his own psychology, his own soul represented through this face. The face does not belong to him, but maybe the terror, the tension, the struggle belong to him as well. The struggle that we call life is present in everything he did. Thank you. I was just thinking